everyone, welcome to our presentation. Today, Kavita and I will be discussing social emotional learning and autism spectrum disorder. We would like to illustrate the benefits of and strategies for implementing SEL practices into the classroom, specifically for students with ASD.
We will be focusing on explaining ASD in relation to social emotional learning and emotional intelligence, the importance of developing SEL skills in the classroom, challenges surrounding this notion, as well as ways to implement strategies for growth of emotional intelligence through SEL skills in the classroom.
First, let's talk about what ASD and social emotional learning are before we dive into their many benefits and uses in the classroom. First, let's take a look and briefly remind ourselves of what ASD really is. ASD stands for Autism Spectrum Disorder and is a neurodevelopmental disorder that impacts social, communication, and behavior domains. ASD was first used in 1988 and is still commonly used today. Originally, ASD was classified as autism. However, ASD now describes individuals who have characteristics ranging from severe to less severe impact on communication, behavioral, cognitive, and/or social growth. For those with ASD, relating to others is difficult or impossible. They show little interest in making friends, unawareness of social interplay, and absence of intuition are typical, which is why we believe social emotional learning is crucial for students with ASD.
Social emotional learning is the process in which children use skills and knowledge to manage emotions, achieve personal and collective goals, feel empathy for others, and maintain relationships. It is important to equip our students with the knowledge and skills they need to support positive mental health throughout their lives, especially with students who have ASD because of its help in developing emotional intelligence, which many students with ASD may struggle with. Ontario's curriculum outlines learning skills that promote the management of emotions, coping with stress, positive motivation, building relationships, deepening their sense of self, and thinking critically and creatively. When students apply these skills to their everyday lives, it aids in healthy personal and interpersonal development. The concept of SELs stem from emotional regulation in relation to emotional intelligence, which describes a person's ability to collectively manage and respond to emotional experiences. Students can be taught to regulate their emotions, and with practice and time, some strategies could be used unconsciously when coping with difficult situations. These practices and strategies lead to better development of emotional intelligence, which helps aid in self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making.
We found that social emotional learning is present within curriculum documents such as the health curriculum and the math curriculum. First, the Health and Physical Education program provides a unique setting for developing the social emotional learning skills that will help students gain a better understanding of who they are and help them connect positively and productively. In this curriculum, the Ministry of Education also includes ideas and guidelines for teaching health and physical education, relating it to social emotional learning for those with learning and behavioral disabilities.
Ontario's math curriculum's SEL strand in grades 1 through 8 focuses on students' ability to incorporate SEL skills in all areas of the math curriculum. We are able to see SEL skills incorporated throughout the math curriculum when students develop problem-solving strategies, select tools that best reflect their needs, reason, reflect, make connections, and communicate. These cross-curricular SEL skills further build emotional intelligence. In the following slide, we will be spotlighting SEL's relevance to students with ASD. Students with ASD may have challenges managing their emotions in difficult situations. This could be caused by delays in acquiring verbal skills, difficulty interpreting nonverbal communication cues, and the lack of quick ability to recognize facial expressions and tones of others, which could come off as a lack of empathy. These challenges could then affect social interactions and other areas within the classroom and school community. Educators need to effectively incorporate self-regulated learning opportunities and social emotional learning in their classroom. Let's look at the benefits of incorporating SEL in the classroom. EDFO shares that the implementation of SEL is vital in the relation to emotional and academic intelligence. As a result of recognizing, expressing, and regulating their emotions, students can then think about other situations as problems they can solve. The Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders shares that SEL skills help promote inclusion in the classroom between students with ASD and their peers. Emotional intelligence leads to greater self-esteem and control of one's actions and intentions. This can lead to better social relationships in the classroom. Ontario's Ministry of Education shares the importance of mental health, stating that 70% of mental health issues begin in childhood or adolescence. With the implementation of SEL skills in the classroom, starting as early as kindergarten, we can see the importance of self-regulation. Social and pro-social regulation is embedded in the kindergarten curriculum, all of which start with the base of emotional regulation, which is taught universally in kindergarten. Students with and without ASD alike are taught strategies that are constantly being built on. These early SEL experiences allow students to develop their emotional intelligence. According to the USA's Department of Education, if a student with ASD exhibits certain behaviors that hinder pro-social development, that student will be labeled an emotional disturbance. Incorporating SEL skills throughout the curriculum gives students the opportunity to demonstrate their emotional intelligence, preventing unwanted labels.
Next, we will look at 3 challenges associated with using social-emotional learning within classrooms with students with ASD. The first challenge in classrooms is time. 81% of surveyed teachers expressed resistance to incorporating SEL instruction into their academic day. An additional 19% stated they thought SEL should not be taught in schools due to the time constraints and resulting decrease in attention to academic instruction. Overall, teachers are concerned that the academic curriculum will be overlooked if time is spent on social-emotional learning. The second challenge is age of the students. Almost half of pre-K and elementary school teachers stated they are implementing SEL instruction, while middle school teachers fell slightly below that at 43%. There was also a rather drastic decrease in SEL instruction for high school teachers, where only 28% of teachers reporting teaching those skills. Many high school teachers also assume that SEL skills have already been taught and therefore do not focus time on it. Overall, age is a barrier between SEL and students with ASD, as well as students overall. The last challenge is the idea that social-emotional learning is not being touched upon in every subject. If SEL is only being taught in some classes and not others, it could pose a problem for students with ASD. This is because students with ASD have strong feelings of frustration, anger, and anxiety when it comes to class discussion, so it is necessary to practice SEL competencies in multiple concepts to ensure mastery and generalization.
Next, we will talk about implementation strategies for the classroom. The first strategy educators can use is social stories. Social stories are an array of pictures and words presented step by step to improve the social skills of a person with ASD. This strategy used to facilitate and understand social relationships helps students with ASD by practicing outcomes of a situation which may decrease anxiety and promote emotional intelligence. This is done through direct teaching, demonstration, rehearsal, and prompting of the social story. As a result of creating the social story, an educator can uncover how a specific student with ASD perceives a situation and can help work through emotions and feelings that may arise in that given situation, which also provides reasons why peers may react in a certain way, which further teaches empathy. Social stories can also be used in universal design for learning to help students who may not be diagnosed with ASD as well. Once an educator has created a book of social stories that help a certain student, those stories can then be placed in a common area of the classroom for easy access. All students can use social stories, which is a great strategy to aid in regulating emotions of students with ASD and others.
The zones of regulation, in my opinion, is a crucial practice within the classroom. The zones of regulation tie 4 colors, red, yellow, blue, and green, to specific emotions that someone can feel. For students, especially those with ASD, this is an important practice because they can use colors and images to understand how they are feeling. I have attached a zones of regulation video to this slide that can be a great resource for primary students and gets them more involved with the topic. If you are interested, it can also be found on YouTube. With the zones of regulation, here are the 4 colors and what they represent. First, it is important to identify emotions with your students and have them tell you which zone that emotion belongs to. With this practice, you can help your students understand how they can go from the red, yellow, or blue into the green zone. This is especially helpful for students with ASD as they have a hard time managing their emotions and understanding social cues from friends. Some examples of how to use this in a classroom is through read-alouds. There are many books that are focused on emotions, having the children tape an image of an emotion onto the proper colored paper of the zones, giving students options of emotions and getting them to identify what the most appropriate action would be to ensure that they get to the green zone. Most importantly, make sure you implement this into everyday practices in your classroom and even in different subjects. You will be surprisingly shocked to see how involved students get with this practice and how much they love to discuss it. This is especially important to get your ASD students talking about their emotions and practicing to manage them.
A third teaching strategy educators can use to promote SEL skills in the classroom is emotions, Simon says. Recognizing emotions in other students can be challenging for most young students. Students with ASD may find it particularly difficult to recognize others' emotions, facial expressions, and emotional cues. Emotion, Simon says, can be played in the classroom or virtually, where one student demonstrates with their face the emotion they are trying to portray, while other students guess. This game can then be played where the teacher shares a scenario with the class and a student shows how they would feel using their face. They would then be asked to explain their feelings and why. This game can be consolidated by presenting a student with ASD cards to help them remember each emotion and the facial expressions attached. If a student gets stuck on an emotion, you can give them a scenario where they might feel that emotion, and then have them give you a scenario to ensure their understanding. During this time of virtual schooling, students with ASD might not have the social opportunities to engage in social situations that aid in understanding emotions. This game and the reinforcement strategies attached can aid in their emotional intelligence development.
The last social-emotional learning method we thought was appropriate for students with ASD in the classroom is size of the problem. This practice helps students with ASD understand what reactions are appropriate and inappropriate depending on the situation. Spence and Tseng mentioned that students with ASD often mismatch the size of the problem and their reaction. This can cause others to feel uncomfortable and interfere with friendship development. With this strategy, you can provide students with ASD with pictures or words that illustrate a problem. For example, a friend that is hitting versus a friend that will not share. You can guide them through the pictures, asking them what the appropriate action would be for each, depending on if it is a big or small problem. This will help them then later interacting with their peers and hopefully help them understand that a small problem deserves a small reaction and vice versa. This strategy can easily be used with other methods we have mentioned as well. Finally, these are our references, including ministry and non-ministry documents. Thank you for watching our presentation, and please feel free to comment or ask us any questions.